What happened? What happened?
Go Chargers, go. Way to save the season to throw fire and down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego! Tomlinson off the left side. Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. They have to here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to week 7 of the walkthrough. I am Jamie Hoyle. We're very lucky to have Craig Stout from Arrowhead Pride and KCSN with us. Craig, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, yeah, glad to be here, man. I'm really happy to be talking some Chargers with you.
Awesome. So we talked about it a little bit before the show started, but we are just going to kind of have a free-flowing conversation here about the Chargers and Chiefs this week. Talk about kind of some, major storylines surrounding both teams, what's going well, what hasn't gone well, how we would attack either team if we were the ones making the decisions with the headsets and the clipboards, and we'll kind of see where it takes us.
Absolutely, man. Sounds great.
All right, so I'm going to start. I wanted to kind of start talking about the first 6 games of the Chiefs season. If somebody had told me going into 2023 that the Chiefs, with an offense led by Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, would be living and dying by their defense, I would have said they were crazy. Yeah. So what is different about the defense this year? What is making that defense click so well, and why has it gone so well through 6 weeks?
I mean, being the resident defensive breakdown guy at KCSN, I am loving this right now. I am thriving at the moment. I really am. No, Steve Spagnuolo's always started slow, and a lot of that has been attributed to he likes to try stuff. He makes significant personnel swaps from drive to drive. He mixes things up. It gets exotic with his coverages. Decides that he's going to zero blitz from the 44-yard line in the second quarter on 1st and 10. Like stuff like that, where he's just trying stuff on for size, feeling out how his players react to that sort of stuff. Last year was kind of a pivot point for that. They had so many new players on the defense. They hit the refresh button, let Tyrann Mathieu walk. It was the last year of Frank Clark's deal. Had so many young players that they played it pretty close to the vest. Ran a lot of cover 2, didn't run a lot of games up front. Still blitz plenty. He can't get rid of that, but kept things pretty close to the vest and pretty vanilla for large parts of the year, and then started to ramp it up at the end of the year like he typically does. Playoff Spags is pretty good. Coming into this year, it seems so much different. These guys are so much more comfortable in their roles. Second-year players like Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Brian Cook. These guys are all so much more comfortable doing what they are asked to do at an NFL level that it's allowed Steve Spagnuolo to mix things up on the. He's playing a lot of 3-match coverages. He's playing a lot of 2-read. He's mixing things up in a bigger way than we've seen him do at the start of the year. And because the depth is so good, Drew Tranquill, that the Chiefs acquired from the Los Angeles Chargers in free agency this year, is a backup linebacker for this team. And I think that most Chargers fans would remember him very fondly as a starting linebacker for their team. He's a guy that comes in and mixes in as a backup Mike linebacker, plays several drives a game as the Mike linebacker, is a backup Will linebacker, replaces Willie Gay Jr. in that role as well as the dime linebacker. So it's the depth. The quality of the depth is so much better. The players are so much more comfortable, and it's showing on the field. They have been absolutely fantastic all year long, keeping a lid on everything defensively. It has been just as much of a surprise to all of us in Kansas City, trust me, that this is a defense-first team right now, but it's been really fun to watch.
So would you say, is everybody playing at their highest level right now, or do you feel like it's the front 7 that's really making things easier on the back end?
Oh man, I think it might be the polar opposite. I think they've got two blue chip players in Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed in the secondary. Maybe not like super household names, but guys who make a ton of plays. I mean, they really have done a good job limiting wide receiver one so far this season. Look no further than their game against Justin Jefferson, who's been lighting everybody up. Now, Justin Jefferson did get hurt in the fourth quarter. Don't want to, try and say that they shut him down all game, but to that point, he had a couple catches for 17 yards, and rest of the NFL had been struggling to do that throughout the season. Those guys have been pretty good. I would say by and large, everybody has been playing up to snuff. Chris Jones looks like a guy that has missed a lot of time. Like he really does. Like he's getting winded easily, but he's still the same player, for a large portion of the snaps. He wins quick. He's a big, mean, guy in the middle of the field that can win with that swim move that I'm sure Chargers fans are going to remember very well. But he is a guy that still looks like he's coming into game shape. You've got some young players on the defensive line that they're rotating in that don't necessarily look like they're ready yet, but these are valuable reps right now. So it is one of those things where I think the front four has some developing to do, and they're just kind of leaning on the linebacking core and this young secondary to do the job. At least that's how I see it from my perspective. I guess I should ask you, how does the rest of the NFL, specifically Chargers fans, how do they view this defense? Is it kind of like a sleeping giant? Is it something where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop and the offense to pick up the slack and the defense is going to reverse? Like, what's your view of it just from a casual fan watching it?
To be honest, what stands out to me is the pass rush. You've got George Karlaftis coming along. Mike Dana is developing really well. You've got Chris Jones inside. They've got some pieces they can rotate. That's what I was expecting you to tell me was doing the job, was the pass rush, creating havoc and making things easier on the back end. And the linebacking core, it seems like forever the Chiefs have struggled with linebacker. They've had a lot of issues at linebacker. And their three starters, both are fantastic athletes. They're smart, they're instinctive, and they can make plays in coverage and against the run. And so you can't really, it seems like it's hard for teams to take advantage of them either way.
It definitely is. Yeah, it definitely is. And they're running a lot more of a 3-3-5 front, which is something that Steve Spagnuolo's never used before because they feel so comfortable with those linebackers. And it's not that the four-man rush has been bad. It's just been glimpses of times where, they'll go for stretches with that four-man rush where Spagnuolo won't blitz. The Jets game really comes to mind there, where they really did not blitz very much in the middle of that game. They just couldn't get Zach Wilson off of his spot. And Zach Wilson's an easy guy to get off of his spot this season. They just were not able to bring that pressure. It's still coming along. It is largely, if you want a quick win, it has to come from Chris Jones, although they got Charles Omenihu coming into play this week here, so maybe another guy that can offer a quick win. I like George Karlaftis and Mike Dana a lot. I think that they're good, quality, solid players for this team, but I do feel like they do disappear at times throughout the game, and so Spagnuolo has to ramp up the blitz again to try and get the pressure going again at times. So I want to see them win a little bit more often than they do, but it's not bad by any means.
So that's what's going well with the defense. The offense seems like they're struggling in spots, and it seems like not having the speed and explosiveness at wide receiver has been an issue. It's something that people have been saying for 2 or 3 years. It's going to catch up to them. It's going to catch up to them. And it never really did. And now it seems like, especially with Justin Wilson out, now it seems like it has. So what are the wide receivers struggling with? What's holding the offense back at this point?
I mean, at this point, you have one wide receiver that they trust to run the full route tree, and it's Sky Moore. And he's not been particularly productive this year. It is not getting very much separation. Even with, Justin Watson in the fold, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, those guys are kind of slower burn vertical guys. Like they'll get up to speed and can offer a vertical element, but they're not, they're not Tyreek Hill.
Right.
We watched Tyreek Hill just no, right, exactly. Who is? But even some of the deep threats that you're thinking of, they can get off the line a little quicker. They can get down the field. You've got to keep that safety over the top. Justin Watson, MVS aren't guys that they are who they are. They do get vertical, but it's more of a build-up speed rather than an instantaneous speed sort of situation. Kadarius Toney is largely being used with manufactured touches and gadget plays right now. And then you've got Justin Ross, a guy that I'm a big fan of, but he is an X-only wide receiver with a limited route tree. And Rashee Rice, who has been by far their most impressive wide receiver right now, but he's a rookie, and they've got him running a lot of hitches and a lot of slants. And what I just described right there from all those guys are a bunch of guys that don't beat man coverage particularly well. And so it's showing when defenses go to man coverage. If Travis Kelce's not getting open quick, or Patrick Mahomes can't check down to a Jet McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco coming out of the backfield, it's a struggle at times. He's got to hold the ball a little bit more. He's having to win with his legs a little bit. It's stuff that they're used to dealing with, but it's not something that seems to be turning around at any point this season. And that's a little bit scary. They're banking on the young guys, and I'm fine with that, but they're not showing maybe some of those signs of growth to try and develop this offense and get back to what I think everybody thinks the Chiefs offense should be year after year with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
So one of the hallmarks for me of the Chiefs offense has always been they're not just the speed, but the spacing and the motion. They were always really good at creating free runs for their wide receivers by moving guys across the formation, kind of running them behind bunch, redirecting the defense from one side of the field to the other. And that's how they were getting guys open. Are they still doing that, or are they having a hard time doing that?
They are trying to do that, I should say. It's still in the playbook. They still utilize it enough to where defenses have to pay attention to that sort of stuff. But the spacing is not great right now. You got guys layered on top of each other a little bit more. It's developmental guys that are getting on the field, having, working against live bullets, in the regular season here early. And so they haven't figured out some of the nuances with that. And when you've got a guy like Travis Kelce that runs so many option routes and gets to freelance as often as he does, that creates a bunch of times where these young wide receivers are maybe running it to a fault. Not necessarily reading the leverage of the corner, or reading the leverage of the safety, running a route to a fault, whereas Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are reading the coverage exactly the same way. Travis Kelce has earned the right to freelance there, certainly. So it leads to a lot of bunched up wide receivers. That spacing that we become so used to is just not there in the same ways. So that is one of the few things that I do think can come over time with this offense. It's just not there right now. And, you can think back to last year. You had a guy in Juju Smith-Schuster that could operate in the middle of the field as well. He and Travis Kelce got to freelance, got to read coverages and, option route off of those things the way that Patrick Mahomes wanted to, simply by losing that one guy. Even if he wasn't like this superstar wide receiver one type player, simply losing that one guy now condenses everything down a little bit more and compresses everything. And coupled with the fact that they don't have a true burner on this team that can get over the top, now you got safeties that can walk up a little more. Now you can kind of compress everything, and those throwing lanes become tighter and more difficult to throw in. And that's largely what we're seeing right now, and why the offense is struggling to just kind of get a good rhythm behind them.
So are they missing the speed and the spacing and Eric Bieniemy? Is it a combination of all three? How much of it was Eric Bieniemy? Because the storyline, at least in my opinion, I always felt like Bieniemy was getting credit for Andy Reid's offense. So how much are they missing him?
I mean, I think they're missing maybe some of the attention to detail. That was the thing that Eric Bieniemy brought to the table every single game, every single week of everything, was the attention to detail. And I think you see some of the sloppiness now creeping in a little bit in this offense there. Eric Bieniemy was the type of guy that if you ran a wrong route, if you messed up on the field and you came over to the sideline, you were trying to avoid him because you didn't want the earful that he was going to give to you. And so we heard that all off season, with the Commanders, it's, he's being too hard on him. He's doing all of that stuff. That's the stuff that all these Chiefs offensive players were used to. It's like, this is the accountability that we need. Matt Nagy's just not that type of guy. And so they don't have that type of guy on the off or on the sidelines there to come back to. So they are missing a little bit of that. But I do think it is the speed element of that. If you can't force the safeties to play deep. And their teams are still playing too high against Patrick Mahomes because they do still fear the arm that he's got there. But if you can't force safeties to stay deep, it just makes the rest of those spacing concepts, the rest of those, high-low concepts, trying to target the second level, trying to find that space between the safeties and linebackers, it's gone. And so it just makes things a lot more difficult here. Losing Justin Watson for any amount of time definitely hurts that a little bit more. And it's one of those where if the Chiefs are to make a move before the trade deadline for a wide receiver, I know a lot of people are trying to target, who's the wide receiver one types that are out there. I mean, that would be nice. I would obviously welcome.
Those guys don't grow on trees.
No, they don't. They don't get free from their teams very often here. I mean, yeah, but finding a guy, even if he can just win on the linear plane a little bit more, like a Hollywood Brown or something like that. Not a guy that you're going to say, okay, he's going to run every route in Andy Reid's book. He's going to go out in there and he's going to do all that stuff. Just somebody who can make a safety respect the ability to go over the top. Even if it's just, on 10 plays a game, that's enough to maybe get this offense in a rhythm and get things going again.
So how important has Taylor Swift been to the Chiefs' success?
Oh, man. I knew I wasn't getting out of here without that. Boy, I'll tell you what. I will say this. Taylor Swift is very important to Chiefs podcasts everywhere right now because, boy, we really enjoy those extra new listeners all of a sudden that are just creeping up out of the middle of nowhere here. It's fun. I will say that, no. What's going to happen, the best part about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce being together, Travis Kelce's injury on turf, on that slit film turf, might actually get the NFL to install grass everywhere. Like the Swifties are mean. Like you don't want to mess with them. So it might be one of those things that they get change because Travis Kelce got a little dinged up.
What do you got for me?
Okay, well, what I got for you, staying with the offensive side, because the Chiefs and the Chargers numbers are very similar on offense. I think shockingly similar. Drive, points per drive, all very similar. Points per game, the Chargers are actually leading the Chiefs in that mark. But third downs, the struggle seems to be on third downs. The Chargers are pretty middle of the pack, third down conversions. What are you attributing that to? Are you attributing that to, not having a go-to guy? I know Keenan Allen has apparently found the fountain of youth this season. He's been awesome. But if teams bracket him, is it just not having that other option? Is it not having something that they can go to easily win on third down that's creating those situations for the Chargers?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. One is outside of week one, they've not run the ball well at all. Yeah. So they're finding themselves in 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7 a lot. So they're becoming predictable. And then they're having to throw the ball down the field more when everybody knows it's coming. So they're not catching anybody off guard. The other thing is their wide receivers are having a really hard time creating separation on a pretty consistent basis.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's been an issue. They're successful against zone. They struggle against man. They struggle with press. It's something they struggled with a lot last year, and it's rearing its ugly head again this year. And they have not had a plan for Quinton Johnston, at all. So he's on the field 20 to 30 snaps a game. They're not throwing the ball to him. It seems like Justin Herbert doesn't trust him necessarily. When they do throw the ball to him, it seems like he drops it. And it seems like they're using him as a clear out decoy option to clear out space for Keenan underneath. So all those things are contributing. And I think they're also really having a hard time, especially the last couple of weeks with no Corey Linsley on the field. They're really struggling with the communication up front. The middle of the offensive line has been really leaky over the last couple of weeks. So, all those things are just getting them stuck.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Quinton Johnston was a guy that I loved coming out. QJ was one of my guys. I would have been ecstatic with the Chiefs drafting him, and it just doesn't seem. It seems like they're trying to use him a little bit like Mike Williams. And I know that Mike Williams is injured right now, and it seems like they're trying to use him like that when he's not necessarily a physical contested catch guy. He's more of a a yak kind of guy. And
Thank you.
hey, okay. I'm glad that you agree.
No,
with
you're
me
absolutely
because,
right. You're
again,
absolutely
I'm
right.
watching it and I'm going, what are we doing here? Like, get the ball in his hands, throw him a tunnel screen or something, get him into space and let him run a little bit. That's what he was best at TCU. I know that everybody's going to turn on the highlights from TCU and go, oh, wow, look at this acrobatic catch that he made. That wasn't his game, though. It was
No, it
few
really
and
wasn't.
far between. So is that a Kellen Moore thing? Is that them just trying to fit him into the Mike Williams role after he was hurt? Was this still the case before Mike Williams was hurt?
You know, he wasn't on the field much when Williams was healthy. And it seemed like they were kind of counting on Keenan and Mike to be healthy all year, which I don't know how you count on that after the last couple of years.
Right.
So they weren't really ready for him to be on the field. The weird thing, though, is they were using Mike in that tunnel screen role. They were throwing him bubble screens, tunnel screens. They were throwing him slants, trying to get him, get the ball in his hands quickly, moving into space. And they haven't done that even though Quinton Johnston is filling his role technically in the offense.
Yeah.
He's not getting those same opportunities. And it just seems like they're seeing 6'2", long, athletic, throwing the jump ball. And like you said, it's just not who he is. It's not what he excels at. It's not what made him special in college. And he's not a very strong guy. He's not a very physical guy. I don't know if you saw the replay from last night, but the game-ending interception last night, he got ragdolled.
Stephon Gilmore just shoved him right off the ball. I mean,
first of all, how do you not call that? But second of all,
Yeah.
I mean, he got embarrassed a little bit physically.
He did. And that's, yeah. And maybe it is just a like for like. They're seeing a type there. Are you guys having sort of regrets here, seeing that Zay Flowers has been as good as he has and Jordan Addison has been as good as he has? I know that those guys fit much differently into the Chargers offense than a Quinton Johnston, theoretically, in the way that we think he should be used. Is there a little bit of regret right now where it's like, man, I would have liked that guy instead? Or maybe on draft day where you may be thinking, oh, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison over Quinton Johnston.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a lot of draft coverage on this show, and we loved Zay Flowers. All three of us loved Zay Flowers. We all like Jordan Addison. I think between the three of us, Quinton Johnston was either wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 for the three of us. So we all felt like Flowers in particular, but Flowers and Addison were a much better complement to what they already had in the wide receiver room. If you look at Keenan, if you look at Palmer, if you look at Mike, those are all bigger bodied guys. They're not known for being explosive. They're going to be, Palmer and Keenan are going to be precise route runners. They're going to get themselves open. Mike's going to make the contested catch because he's not separating from anybody. So that's why we felt like if you're going to run that gimmick, run the jet sweeps, run the tunnels, all that kind of stuff, Flowers was the perfect fit for that. So we really wanted Flowers. We were absolutely ecstatic when he was still on the board when the Chargers were at 21 because we were convinced it's happening. And then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we had some concerns about Johnston's hands, which I think has shown itself a little bit in the preseason and in the regular season, and just his general physicality in terms of blocking. How much is he going to be on the field if he's not strong enough physically to be able to do the things he needs to do to be on the field? So it just seems like the Chargers have a wide receiver body type. They like their guys to be 6'2" or taller. They don't really care about speed. And so they went for a very specific type, thinking that they could just fit him into the offense, and he's maybe not what they thought they were getting. So they maybe didn't evaluate the skill set as well as they thought they did.
Yeah. And I get that. I do. I've felt that way about several Chiefs picks and things like that, where I'm like, what was the fit here? I liked Quinton Johnston in Kansas City because of some of those manufactured touches, the yak stuff, the stuff that they're using Rashee Rice on right now fits perfectly with Quinton Johnston as well. Like it really does. I think that makes a ton of sense. I also really loved Zay Flowers. We got to talk to him at the Shrine game. We were there in person, got to interview him, got to see him. He just moves different than everybody else on the field when you're watching those sort of practices, and you're like, oh, that's why he's a round one talent. It's just it's next level in that regard. So yeah, I get that there. Okay, I got to ask the big question here. What's going on with the defense? Like all this cap space, all this money thrown at it. I look up and down this defense, and I see guys that I love, that I think are excellent football players. What's happening here? Why is it not clicking? Is it a Brandon Staley thing? Is it just are they dinged up? Is it guys not executing well? What is it that's leading to some of these breakdowns that we are seeing from the Chargers right now on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going into it, to be honest with you. I think the big one is Staley seems to be married to his scheme. I mean, it's what got him hired, so it kind of makes sense to an extent, but it has not worked. His whole mantra is stop the explosive play, prevent the explosive play, and he's not doing that on the ground or in the air. So it's not working. The most success that he's had with this personnel is generally with the stars off the field when he has to simplify things. And it's just like, all right, let's just go to press coverage. Let's be physical, and let's just make them beat us man to man. And that's where most of their success comes from. As soon as the stars come back, it's all right. Now we're going to go 8 to 12 yard cushions. We're going to show them cover 2. Let's roll into cover 3. Let's roll into cover 6. Let's roll into cover 5. We'll invite them to run, even though we can't stop the run. Yeah. And they just, they're asking so much of so many guys. They have Mike Davis, who's proven himself to be a very effective press man corner, playing 12 yards off the ball.
Right.
They have Derwin, who has always thrived closer to the line of scrimmage, playing too high with Alohi Gilman. Derwin's playing strong safety. Gilman is a less talented, redundant version of Derwin, playing free safety, because they want Derwin closer to the line of scrimmage, but they can't have him closer to the line of scrimmage because Gilman can't play a single high. So, and he struggles even in too high. So they're having issues on the back end there. Their rotations, their different coverage packages, all of those things, it just seems like nobody understands them. And then you have a big signing like JC Jackson blow up in your face before you even get into year 2. And now they're thin at corner because of that. They have a lot of problems on the back end. They struggle to tackle, and they're having all kinds of problems with just stupid penalties coming from their best players. Derwin with the personal fouls. Joey is a target for false starts and personal fouls. And all those things just add up to a nightmare. Although I will say they played pretty well last night, outside of giving up that last touchdown or the last field goal. They were, I thought, generally pretty effective outside of a couple penalties.
I thought so too. I have been impressed a little bit with Raheem Lane. Again, a guy that I did not have any expectations for. Knew a little bit about him coming out in the draft, but nothing big. And I was really impressed with the way that he was playing there. So it was unfortunate to see that he has an ACL injury. Alohi Gilman is still coming back. Will they play Dean Marlowe next to Derwin James, or are they just will they stick AJ Finley in there next to James and still keep Marlowe in as kind of like that third dime safety in that role?
No, Marlowe's mostly been playing deep the last couple of weeks, and he's been really good at it. So Lane is much more of the strong safety dime linebacker. Marlowe is the guy who they're having play too high, single high. He's been bracketing guys very effectively. He covers a ton of ground. 31 years old. He's been in the league a long time, developed by Sean McDermott. He understands the scheme. And I think that's something they've been missing on the back end, particularly at the third level, is they just don't have, not only do they have guys who can't carry out the things they're asking them to do, but I don't think the guys understand what they're being asked to do. And Marlowe gets it, and he can do it. He can cover. He's fine in man coverage. Yep. He's good with the rotations. He can tackle. He's good against the run. He looks like he's going to be a playmaker on the back end. He's been really close to a couple picks the last couple weeks. So he's been kind of a nice find for them. And I think he's a big reason why you're starting to see some of those explosive passing plays not happening quite as often in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that Fangio defense has some hallmarks to it, and you gotta key on several things as part of the rotation. Do you think that Fangio style defense, we're seeing now, it's becoming less and less effective? You know, those teams that are running it regularly, those teams that are implementing it, especially the more rigid implementations of it, not some of the looser stuff. We're seeing those teams getting taken advantage of a little bit by teams that, you know, aren't necessarily trying to go explosive with it. They're just trying to chip away underneath over and over and over again and lull them into a false sense of confidence and then go explosive with it. Do you think that this is something that – do you think Brandon Staley will ever abandon the Vic Fangio defense, first of all? And then second of all, do you think that if he doesn't, it will cost him his job in the end?
I thought coming into this season, based on the success they had in the second half of the year last year when they were really banged up, particularly in the secondary, and they went on that run to make the playoffs, I really thought that was going to be kind of the jumping off point for Staley to say, you know what, I need to be more flexible. Especially with Miami in week 1 this year. I really thought that they would be more simple and more flexible with what they were doing. And it hasn't happened. So at this point, Staley has generally been pretty good with adjusting when new information presents itself. But the one area where he hasn't done that consistently and stuck with it is with his scheme. So right now, I would say no, he's probably not going to adjust it. It just doesn't seem like it's something he's willing to do. Will it cost him his job? Yeah, it probably will. I don't know that it'll be this year.
Yeah.
Because generally when the Chargers hire a coach, they coach out the full 4 years of their first contract before they fire him. So he will be here for 4 years unless they just completely go into the tank this year and they don't win another game, or, you know, they're just terrible to the point that they have no choice. He'll be here next year.
Okay. So this is kind of my last one for a little bit here. I'll throw it back over to you. Are the Chargers playing for their season this week against the Chiefs? Does it feel that dire to the Chargers fan base, or is this something that's like, hey, let's try and just chip away at this little by little, we can claw this back, this is not do or die? Or does the fan base feel like, hey, if we lose this one, the Chiefs essentially have a 4-game lead on the division over everybody, it might be all but over before we even really get started in the season in earnest here?
I think it depends on who you talk to. You know, there's that subsection of the Chargers fan base that always thinks they're going to win the division, they're going to win the Super Bowl, we're going to go, 15-2.
Every fan base has them. Yeah.
And if you talk to those people, they're probably looking at it like, oh man, we're screwed if we don't win this game. From my perspective, I didn't expect them to win the division. So, playing in a division with the Chiefs, you hope for a split with them. You're probably looking at a wild card almost no matter what you do, just because of the success they've had. So I was not expecting a division title. I was expecting 10 to 12 wins in a wild card. And I think that's still doable. And if you look at the middle part of their schedule, I still think, they've still got 2 games left with Denver. They've still got a game left with the Raiders. There's still teams they can beat later in the year. And I still think there's an opportunity to win 10 or 11 games. And the defense was so much better this week. And even to an extent, it played better against the Raiders. That I think there's reason to think that they're figuring some things out. They just have a lot left to figure out on offense based on the way things have been going.
They do. And when you do, to your point, when you look at the middle of the schedule they got the Bears after the Chiefs. I mean, like that's a get right game. The Jets look a little bit salty, but once again, we've seen Zach Wilson turn into a pumpkin. So I'm not holding my breath that they're just going to continue that. The Lions were a good football team, but then you've got the Packers who are kind of falling apart. You got the Patriots in there, like you said, the Broncos twice. There are still a lot of very winnable games for this Chargers team. I just didn't know. I'm seeing a lot of kind of rumblings from people that are just like, oh no, our back, the backs are against the wall a little bit here with the way that this is shaking out here. And I'm with you. I look at this team and I say there's no reason to think that they can't get it going in the middle of the season, especially against the opponents that they've got, surprise a couple of teams and be a wild card team for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think if they win 10 or 11 games, they should win a wild card spot. For sure. And then, all bets are off. Anything can happen once you get in. So Absolutely. They weren't that far from winning the game against the Jaguars last year. Not that I want to bring that up again. But,
I know. Yeah.
But I think they're talented enough that they can make enough plays to win some games if they just figure some things out on offense and tighten some screws a little bit on defense.
Yeah. All right. I'll throw it back to you. What else you got?
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about some matchups. So you are the Chargers offensive coordinator for right now.
Okay.
You have to come up with a game plan for how you want to attack the Chiefs defense.
Okay.
What areas of the field are you attacking? Who are you attacking either up front or on the back end? And how are you building that game plan?
I'm going to build the game plan out of running out of heavy personnel. 21 personnel, if at all possible. If that's something that the Chargers feel comfortable operating out of, that is something that's going to force the Chiefs into their base defense. And right now, I know we just got done talking about how that linebacking core has been really good, and they've actually made some good plays in coverage, but teams have been able to capitalize on getting a Leo Chanel in coverage. And, if Steve Spagnuolo is in his blitz packages out of the base defense, which he does still use. I know a lot of coordinators just completely go vanilla when they go in base. They don't want to use a blitz package. If he's in his blitz package at all, that means that he's going to be dropping out a Mike Dana. He's going to be dropping out a George Karlaftis into coverage. Those are the types of guys that are going to give you advantageous matchups against tight ends. Sometimes those guys have to drop to slot receivers. So a Joshua Palmer or a Keenan Allen might end up with a George Karlaftis on them. You're forcing the Chiefs to kind of play with one hand behind their back a little bit. Steve Spagnuolo's ability to use his nickel corners or, a third safety that's kicked down into a nickel spot is one of the best in the league. And it always has been. Like, he was one of those guys that was revolutionizing that with the New York Giants, and he's taken that to another level with the Chiefs. You take that ability to play with that nickel, to rotate that nickel to the deep safety, to give exotic looks and things like that out of his playbook, it has worked for teams this year. The New York Jets got Zach Wilson in a big rhythm because they just stayed in 21, 12, 13 personnel and just consistently got matchups that they wanted on their terms there. They didn't let Steve Spagnuolo dictate the game by getting into sub packages, by going to 11 personnel, or even two-back sets that are like a Joshua Kelly or an Austin Eckler. They're going to counter that with 11, or they're going to counter that with their sub package as well. So you will have to make them stay in heavy personnel right now. Currently, because I chart this stuff and because this is what I do, out of the 4-3 defense, right now, they are allowing 6.7 yards per pass. So The play action passing game is excellent. That is by far the most yards per pass that they are allowing out of any other formation, any other personnel set that they're getting into right now. I thought it was silly that the Broncos didn't try and get into that a little bit more last Thursday against the Chiefs. But, hey, the Broncos are a silly football team, an unserious football team right now. But it does seem like there are times, there are ways to exploit those guys and take good, advantageous matchups. If you can get the Chiefs into their 4-3 defense, just don't try and run against it because it's been phenomenal against the run. Just get that play action game going and try and rely on your playmakers, even though you're down one by being in heavy personnel, to go and win advantageous matchups.
Okay. So now you are the Chargers defensive coordinator.
Okay.
What are you doing to stop the Chiefs offense?
I'm playing man coverage. I'm just playing man coverage, and I'm just saying, hey, these wide receivers have to beat me. And I'm going to rely on my guys to go out and rough up these receivers, stay in their hip pocket. They're not able to gain separation right now. So bracket Travis Kelce or put Derwin James on him. We've seen just how effective Derwin James can be on Travis Kelce. He is banged up right now. That ankle injury and that calf is bothering him. And you guys might want to, send a thank you letter to what's his name, the linebacker Alexander out of Denver, who gator rolled Kelce at the end of the game and re-aggravated that ankle after he was playing pretty well. It's a real cheap shot there, but it was one of those. He's a little bit limited. He does not look to have the exact same dynamic nature that he does. Of course, not, he's an older guy. He's been playing in the league a long time. Derwin James as a matchup on him just makes sense. And then just play man across the board. If Rashee Rice beats you, I think you take that as a defensive coordinator. If Sky Moore beats you, you definitely do, because he hasn't done that to date right now. So make the Chiefs wide receivers beat you by playing press man coverage, by staying tight in there. I know that that's going to require a little bit of shifting from Brendan Staley a little bit to get out of some of the things that he typically does. At the very worst, what's going to happen there, if you can take care of Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes might beat you with his legs. And that's going to happen at times. You're just going to have those moments that are there. Just keep good, passing lane discipline out there, or rush lane discipline out there, and don't allow him to easily escape the pocket, and just stay in man, because those guys are just not getting open right now.
All right. I like those tips. That all sounds good. I think if I'm the Chiefs, my first move is I'm bracketing Keenan Allen and making somebody else beat me.
Yeah.
And I'm daring the Chargers to run on me. I'm playing too high, and I'm just daring the Chargers to open up holes and beat me on the ground. I think if the Chargers run power, which is really their strength in the run game, it's what made them so successful against the Dolphins. I think that gives them a shot to be very effective running the ball against the Chiefs. But if they're running outside zone like they've been doing the last few weeks, they're going to have a really hard time getting things moving on the ground. I am also really attacking the Chargers really from Will Clapp all the way down to Trey Pipkins.
The right side of the line.
Yep.
The right side. Yeah.
Yep. I'm running stunts. I'm running twists. I've got Chris Jones, and I've got Mike Dana and George Karlaftis taking turns on Salyer and Pipkins, trying to create confusion, trying to see how Will Clapp does communicating blitz pickups and twists, how they're doing passing things off, because that's an area they've really struggled in, and it's a weakness in the blocking schemes of Kellen Moore's offense. So those are things that I would be looking to do for sure. I would not blitz Herbert that much. I don't think they may not need to blitz him that much. I think if you can get home with 4 lately, I hate to say this because it's not something that's been common for Herbert, but lately he's been seeing and feeling the rush, whether it's there or not. And he's been kind of erratic with his throws. So pressure's never been something that bothered him, but it's been bothering him lately. And I think he just doesn't trust what's going on in the middle of the line right now.
I think that really shows up. Like, and I think it confounds me. And maybe that's just because he came from that, we've been watching him in the Joe Lombardi offense for so long now. Get the ball out quick. Don't get rattled with pressure. He wasn't seeing pressure as often because it was just get to your spot, get the ball out. Almost robotic. He's not a robotic guy, but almost robotic in that sort of way. And so that's kind of when I watch the Chargers offense, that's the part that surprises me the most, is the happy feet that he's showing at times this year. And that's very difficult. But, to your point, if you got Will Clapp, you've got, I don't remember the right guard's name right now. You just said it. Yeah. And then you're right. Yes. And then you got Trey Pipkins over there. I would be worried about that if that was, half my offensive line as well. And so, like, to your point, with a 4-man rush, you can line Chris Jones up on the right side of the line Charles Omenihu coming back up over Zion Johnson. They're going to feel like Zion Johnson can win that matchup, and he probably can. I'm not saying that he can't, but that's a lot of focus there on the interior of the offensive line, and you are guaranteeing almost a one-on-one on both sides of the outside of the offensive line there. Rashawn Slater's going to handle whatever they throw at him. Don't get me wrong. He's an excellent tackle, but that means that they can't help Trey Pipkins as much unless they're going to leave a back in, they're going to leave a tight end in, and less guys that you're putting in the route against Steve Spagnuolo. Eventually he will start blitzing, and he'll blitz in the A gap, and he'll line those guys up in that exact same way, and they have to help against Chris Jones, have to help against Charles Omenihu. You get a free Leo Chanel up the middle there. That's bad news for Justin Herbert. So I see exactly what you're saying there. That would be scary for me as well if my quarterback had that on the right side of his line.
Yeah, they've been up and down. The line in general was pretty good the first 2 or 3 weeks, but it really struggled against the Raiders, and it had a really rough game. Even though they only gave up 1 sack, I think, at the end of the game, they gave up a lot of pressure. They were just very leaky, and they're fortunate that Herbert's able to kind of sidestep guys and manipulate the pocket and get the ball out or extend plays with his legs.
It's really nice having a quarterback that can do that, isn't it?
It is. It's not something we've been used to.
Either one of us.
Yeah.
So
I'd actually really like to see them do more of that with Herbert on design runs and RPOs. I thought that was something that Kellen Moore did really well with the Cowboys when he was in Dallas, and it's not something that showed up quite as much so far for the Chargers. Hopefully, maybe they're saving it for the Chiefs.
I hope not. This team has not done. This team's not done a particularly great job against mobile quarterbacks in the past. Now, I will say this: Tranquil has helped a ton with that. Nick Bolton's a guy that not the best athlete in the world, ridiculously smart guy. Willie Gay Jr. is a super athlete, but doesn't always read the game at a high level. Having Tranquil at the second level has just helped out immensely on that front, trying to make sure that everything's buttoned down. I fully believe that this team would not be 5-1 right now if Drew Tranquil wasn't here. Nick Bolton missing 3 weeks in the middle there, this defense wouldn't have held up with any of the backup Mike linebackers that they had at their offering over the past, since Derek Johnson left, essentially. Nobody else has been of the quality of Drew Tranquil there. So not to rub salt in that wound that he got out of the Chargers or anything, but it really has been fun to watch him play within this system.
So let's make some predictions. What do you think happens on Sunday?
I think this is going to be a game that I'm going to be sweating out the entire time. It's a divisional game against the Chargers. These things never go one way or the other. It's always close right up until the end. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say that this game goes to OT because it's a Chiefs-Chargers game. Both of these offenses can do just enough. And I think that they're going to be able to move the ball. I think the Chargers are going to pull some stuff out that they haven't shown before. I fully expect that Keenan Allen finding the fountain of youth again is going to give these Chiefs defenders a little bit of trouble because I don't think they're going to give him the Justin Jefferson treatment. Like you said, I would personally, but I think they're going to look up and down and say, hey, listen, Joshua Palmer's a good receiver. We need to make sure we take care. Johnson maybe hasn't shown it yet, but we need to make sure that we take care of him. We can handle Keenan Allen with a L'Jarius Sneed or a Trent McDuffie in the slot and maybe let him free there. I think Keenan Allen can win that matchup enough times. And because Justin Herbert's going to throw volume his way. By the way, if we can find that fountain of youth again, Travis Kelce might need it.
No.
You guys are sick of him?
We're not sharing it. No.
Oh, fine.
You're just getting a little greedy now. So no.
I am getting a little greedy here. Listen, I've been covering this team and writing about this defense since 2009, man. I was in the dreck, so I've been enjoying this for a little bit. But I do think that the Chiefs offense going against the Chargers defense, the Chargers present enough matchup problems with the Chiefs tackles. Jawan Taylor's in his head right now, trying to make sure that he's aligned properly, not getting off the line too fast. There's a lot of stuff that he's having to course correct in the middle of the season. And anybody that's played this game, especially offensive line, having to do that, it is very difficult to do. Now you got Joey Bosa coming to town. I know that Khalil Mack hasn't been the same player. Outside of that Raiders game, he was fantastic late in the rep especially. But these are guys that can win against the Chiefs tackles, against Donovan Smith, against Jawan Taylor. That's going to be problematic. And so I think that we're going to see drive stalls. So even though the Chargers defense isn't what it has been, I think Derwin James can do enough against Kelce. That pass rush can do enough. And then on the flip side, I think the Chiefs defense is going to be a little more confident than maybe they need to be. Make some adjustments. The Chiefs come back. I see the Chargers jumping out here. Chiefs come back. It goes to overtime. And then, I hate to say it, Travis Kelce's going to score a touchdown in overtime because that's
just
what
the way
the
it
man
works.
does. It's just the way that it works, unfortunately. But I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out brawl between these two teams. And I think that the Chargers are going to walk away from this game, I think, feeling like, okay, that's a good performance and another good performance on top of each other. Let's build this. And like you were saying, into the middle of the season against some other opponents here, come back, try and face the Chiefs in weeks 18 now. Old man right now. So I almost said week 17. Face them in week 18. Try and catch them off guard there and try and get back into the point where they can get into the playoffs. How about you? What you think? How do you think it's going?
You didn't give me a score. What do you think? What do you think
a
for
score.
A score?
Well, let's go. It has to be a Travis Kelce touchdown at the end, so I got to pick a weird number now. So we're going to go 34-28 Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs win this game. I think I had them picked to win this game even before the Chargers started struggling. I think this is a 37-30 game.
Okay. Still close. Still a one-score game in there. Okay.
Yeah, they're always close. The Chargers don't play
they are.
blowouts. Very rarely anyway.
They don't. So how do you see the game flow going? Do you think Kansas City controls it, or do you think it is a back and forth affair like that?
The Chargers always seem to jump out to a lead and promptly blow it. So I would not be surprised if it kind of went like it did last year where the Chargers are up 10-0, 17-7 after the first quarter and a half or near halftime, and then the Chiefs pull away in the second half.
Gotcha. I mean, we've seen that script before, unfortunately for you guys, but we have seen that script before. I am a little bit – the Chiefs always do this thing, especially here in the middle of the season, and we're starting into the middle of the season, where Andy Reid all of a sudden gets the playbook and he clutches it as close to his chest as possible, and the vanilla plays start coming out, especially against teams that they're going to see again or potentially going to see again. That's why I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win here in a couple weeks against the Chiefs, not just because they're an excellent football team, but also because Andy Reid's not going to get out any of the good plays against the Miami Dolphins in week 9. We'll see you in the playoffs. We'll get them out there. I feel like that's what will happen with the Chargers, and that's a little bit of what happened with the Broncos there. Andy does this all the time. Keep it close to the vest. Don't try and reveal too much. Show up when it comes playoff time. Like you said, that's when it matters. That's when you got to play at your best. So save them for then. So I think that we'll see some of the struggles there. And so that's why I'm a little bit more pessimistic than maybe most Chiefs fans about the way that this game's going to go.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. You were great. It was a lot of fun. For everybody who's watching, just keep in mind, remember our weekly schedule. Obviously, the walkthrough on Wednesday. We have now Score More with Garrett on Thursday. Craig with I Got 5 on it on Friday. Post game on Sunday. And our mailbag show, TLR Roundtable, on Tuesdays. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Craig, once again, thank you very much. I hope we get to do this again. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, everybody.